Hello, folks. It's another episode of Havlicek Stole the Pod. I am your host, Alex Goldberg. With me, as always, is Dr. Justin Quinn and Daniel Donabedian. And we also have Clemente Almanza from the Thunder Wire joining us here, a frequent guest. We'd love to have him back to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Boston Celtics, and the state of the league. This episode, because the Celtics and the Thunder are both playing very well for the most part this season, we're focusing on who's a contender and who is a pretender. We'll get right into it after some quick hitters on the news, including some discussion of a fairly significant NBA trade. But first off, Dr. Quinn, how are you doing today?
Well, today seems to be a day of delays, but they all lead to good things. So I'll leave it at that.
We'll take it. Daniel, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. It was above 40 today, which is a nice surprise for around here because it has been freezing and it's kind of sucked.
Yep. Clemente, yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. We're kind of in the meat of the regular season right now, playing every other day, just kind of, taking it day by day.
And I am a little panicked and rushed because I've been bouncing from place to place and have a lot to do, but I will try to keep my composure throughout this episode for you, dear listener. So let's get right into it. First things first, we should talk about what the Boston Celtics have been up to since our last episode. We talked about their upcoming slate of games. Among other things, in that slate, they won against the Sacramento Kings in a pretty light affair, 120-106. Then they had a blowout win against the Los Angeles Clippers, who were at the time coming off a huge win streak. Jaylen Brown notably had 50 points, dominant performance, arguably the career best, or tied his career high, and generally completely controlled the game. Then a light work win over the Chicago Bulls, 115-101, and they punctuated all of this with a disappointing home loss to the skeleton crew Denver Nuggets, missing Nikola Jokic and Jonas Valanciunas and a number of other players. But Peyton Watson returns as a Celtics killer, which is what he's rapidly turning into, and the Jamal Murray-led, Aaron Gordon-led Nuggets snuck up on the Celtics and got a win. The fourth quarter once again got away from them, as seems to be the case in many of their losses. Any thoughts on any of these games? We'll go around the horn. Clemente, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of from a distance, because you guys obviously cover the team on a day-to-day basis, so I'm not as close to the team as you guys are, but I don't know. I mean, the Celtics, they've been kind of the story of the NBA this last couple of weeks. You had Jaylen Brown. We're kind of breaking out this year, and that become kind of a national story after he dropped 50 on the Clippers a couple days after he said that he should have won Player of the Month.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, does anybody know who won Player of the Month in December last year? Because I don't.
I don't even remember who won Player of the Month this year. So, yeah.
But I mean, whatever. I guess gives you some extra motivation. But I mean, he's been awesome. He's been like a 30-point scorer, super efficient, leading a top 5 team, and just kind of blowing everybody's expectations out the water so far with one of the NBA's best offenses. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if you're a Celtics fan or whatever, it's kind of it's been pretty gravy so far because I mean, like I said, entering the year, you look at their roster and I bet you like most folks probably thought that they'd be a playing team at best.
I mean, that's what we said earlier in the season with you on the show, pretty much. So, I mean, you can go back and check the receipts on that.
Daniel, anything to add to this stretch of games?
Yeah, I'll just say some of those games, like them beating the Kings and then that ugly, ugly win against the Bulls at home, those are the games where nobody's going to remember it. Nobody's really going to talk about it anymore. But hey, they still count the same. It helped them go past the Knicks. And granted, losing to the Nuggets dropped them right back down. But they went, 4-1 on that long road trip. And then I think they had won like 8 of their last 10 games or something now. Overall, they're playing really well. And if you remember last year, the Celtics kind of trailed off around this time of year. So I think they'll obviously be trying to avoid that again. But hey, like Clemente was saying, they've exceeded expectations. I think preseason I was like, I think they can make the playoffs, but I'm not so sure. But now now it feels like the playoffs is going to happen. How high the seed, I don't know, but it doesn't really feel like a question anymore if everybody can stay healthy.
We'll get into where Boston fits in amongst the contenders or pretenders dynamic in a little bit. The one thing I do want to just quickly shout out is Nemesh Keita had 20 rebounds the other night and has generally been playing quite well in this stretch. There has been this thing that I've noticed, which is that he tends to get kind of gassed at the end of these games, and understandably so. He's playing his ass off in some of these minutes, and so understandably he's going to be kind of worn down by the end. It does feel like, even though Garza and Keita are giving them really good minutes, the front court is starting to get a little bit rickety, just a tad. So we'll be talking a little bit more about what they could do regarding that in the future. But it dawned on me kind of in the Nuggets game in particular, that's like, this team is playing very well. They also need to be a little careful that they don't burn themselves out in January. But that's something for another time. Speaking of the Celtics front court, Mike Scotto of Hoops Hype. Scotto, apologies. We've had him on the pod. I don't know why I say that. But he has reported that the Boston Celtics are indeed interested in Ivica Zubac. And Brian Scalabrine is from the sideline reporting that the package would look something like 2 first-round picks, a young wing, and Anthony Simons' expiring deal. We don't know exactly how good Scal's sources are, so we're just going to throw that out there. But
it's been echoed by other people similarly. The wing part wasn't echoed, but the 2 picks has been several different places. So,
for what it's worth, I just read a thing earlier today that suggests that Ivica Zubac is currently experiencing what we call a get me out of here season, in which his advanced metrics look extremely good amidst a not so talented Clippers roster. But we will see about that. Do we think this is a reasonable price for Ivica Zubac? Clemente, as a neutral observer, why don't you start?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. I mean, if the Clippers do sell him, they'll be selling low, which is generally not something you want to do as an NBA front office. I mean, like you mentioned, he had a career year last year, and this year he's kind of regressed really across the board to the point where, I mean, I'm seeing like a lot of like Clippers media and their fans suggesting that, one of the reasons why they've been hot so much recently is because he's been out. With an ankle injury, I think. But anyways, he came back recently. He came off the bench. I don't know. I think he'd be a good buy low candidate for any team. It's just that I just don't know just how much of an appetite the Clippers are going to have to kind of sell off Zubac. I mean, he's somebody that they developed whenever they got him from the Lakers. Played like a DPOY candidate last year. And frankly, the Clippers, as most people know, they really have no incentive to lose. I mean, they don't control the draft pick this year. They're kind of riding out this Kawhi Harden duo.
Yep.
And maybe get into playoffs. You never know what happens, but yeah, I just don't see the Clippers making any sell now moves. If anything, I think they do the opposite.
Yeah, that does kind of feel right, at least just on my end. JQ, Daniel, anything to add to the Zubac rumors?
Yeah, a couple of different things. So first of all, a lot of the names that have been popular, including from us as alternatives to Zubac in terms of a high-level postseason ready type of a big man, Jared Allen, Triple J, those guys signed extensions, so they're going to cost more than they cost now. And trading for them now would make it easier to get them on the roster, but then the same problems that Boston basically just got themselves out of would come right back, right? So that kind of takes them out of the equation unless you can kind of juggle something. So if you're serious about pursuing a title in the near future, even as early as this season, depending on how things go, you have to find a guy like that, I think, unless you find someone else who can lift the Celtics up as well, which makes him one of the better candidates out there. You have to also keep in mind that Boston's picks are not going to be very good until probably, hopefully, until the 2030s, right? So 2 of their picks is really kind of just like 1.5 of a good pick, if we're being honest. It's going to be like in the 20s or, more towards 30 even, if we're lucky. So there's a lot of reasons why it would make sense to consider a deal like this if the wing they were asking for was not Hugo Gonzalez.
I don't think Hugo Gonzalez is going to be available for the Clippers. Frankly, I would be a little surprised if Jordan Walsh or Sam Hauser is even that pick, considering that the Celtics have 5 bench wings that are all playable. I think you're probably looking at a Josh Minot or a Baylor Shireman here. That would be my guess. Now, I will say Anthony Simons would functionally have to be part of this deal, right? Just to make the math work, unless you're also dealing Sam Hauser.
No, they
but-
could. They could. So this is another thing. They have the Kristaps Porzingis trade exception.
Yes,
They can
that's true.
absorb Zubac's salary, and then they could theoretically just re-sign Simons or let him walk after the season is over, and figure it out later. But I don't think that's what's going to happen if they do that. So yeah, I do think it's going to be Simons.
It does feel like the Clippers also probably wouldn't take that deal, if we're being totally honest, right?
Pretty good chance.
Yeah, I think Simons would be one of the prizes in this deal. For what it's worth, though, Boston seems to value Simons. They are not reportedly in the same report. There was this idea that like they would have to move a first round pick to salary dump him. If that's the case, they're not going to do that. Like they're just going to keep him and keep it rolling because he's been playing pretty well.
I think that's negotiating in the media. Honestly, yeah. I don't see any world where they are going to expend any draft assets to get rid of him.
Yeah, and considering, frankly, he's been playing pretty well lately. I mean, he's been a big part of this team. So I don't think they're necessarily eager to move on from Simons, but we do have to remember this is also a team that has sold high on guys before. Hello, Josh Richardson. We thank you for your service. Derek White, we're glad to have you. So it's not like this is an unprecedented development, but we'll keep an eye on that one. Daniel, anything to add there, or should we jump into the next bullet?
Yeah, I think we can move on. I mean, I would somewhat trust Scal on this, so I do think the noise might be a little real. But I agree with what you guys said. It really depends who the wing is to make this the right deal, because the Ugo difference from Josh Minot is, I think that's pretty substantial. But
well, that and much more coming at the trade deadline. But we have a trade that we need to discuss right now, which is that last night after the Celtics finished losing to the Nuggets and before the Lakers and Spurs game started, we got official confirmation Trae Young is headed to the Washington Wizards for Corey Kispert, CJ McCollum, and that's it. That's what the Atlanta Hawks are getting back for a guy that they admittedly had a huge involvement with. Trae Young is headed to the Wizards. He is, for what it's worth, not expected to play very much this year, which might be a big part of why that was a relatively light return for the Atlanta Hawks there. But this is a very interesting move in many respects. So we'll go around the horn. We'll start with you, Clemente. First thoughts, what is going on here with the Trae Young trade?
Yeah, funny enough, there's like a good amount of OKC ties to this because obviously, Trae Young went to college at Oklahoma, and then the Wizards front office, it's a lot of like former OKC guys. I mean, Will Dawkins spent the last 15 years in OKC learning under Sam Presti. Michael Ringer was with OKC at one point before he went to the Clippers. So you kind of got like two Presti lights kind of, running the ship over there. And for them to take this big of a swing is something that you never really see Sam Presti do a lot. Historically speaking, obviously the Paul George trade was kind of an exception. But historically speaking, Presti is the type of guy who likes to develop talent, homegrown talent, all that stuff. So a little bit surprising that, kind of like his protege, I guess, and Will Dawkins kind of made this move. But I like it for the Wizards. You don't really give up a ton. You really give up nothing to get Trae Young. And I know Trae Young's, trade value is probably at the lowest it's ever been. But I mean, he has a pretty long track record of being a guy that could be, a 25-point scorer, 10 assist guy, perennial All-Star. Made the East Finals a few years ago with the Hawks. And I don't know. I really like the trade. It kind of reminds me of, I guess, the Brandon Ingram trade from last year, where he also went to Toronto and didn't play the rest of the year with an injury. So it could be like kind of a similar game plan for them there, just to get a high lottery pick and all that for this year. But I like Trae's fit there. I think he's gonna be perfect for Alex Sarr as somebody who's gonna spoon feed him a lot of easy buckets around the rim off the roll. And I think he's going to be able to help out, Keyshawn George as well. Trey Johnson's going to get a lot of catch and shoot looks as well. So I really like this fit for Washington, because they're not really a top free agent destination. So if you're gonna get like a huge outside talent, it's got to be through trade, and they're basically getting like a flyer with Trae Young here.
All right, Daniel, we'll go to you first. Thoughts on the Trae Young trade? We got some thoughts on what Washington is up to. What about what Atlanta's up to?
Yeah, they're kind of in a weird spot, I guess. I mean, Jalen Johnson's stock has just gone really high this year, so I think that is some of the reasoning behind why they're able to part with Trae Young pretty easily here. But like we have Porzingis, obviously, where we don't really fully know what that's gonna look like because of his illness. I know he's like back right now, but he's taking it easy. But who knows? That could change very easily. I mean, the Celtics fans know that. I don't know if you could fully rely on him. Um, but yeah, I don't think they were ever gonna extend Trey again, and he knew that. So I think there was just a natural time to fix this sooner rather than later. But as far as Trey Young, I feel like Celtics fans should know that he's capable of a lot. I mean, just remember 2023. He kind of killed them at times, and he has throughout his career. So I feel like some people online are kind of forgetting who he is. Obviously, his defense leaves stuff to be desired, and the Hawks have had like a better record without him at times too. But I still think he brings a lot to the table, and the Wizards should be better for it. Maybe not now, but in like 2 to 3 years. The Hawks, I mean, the East is not great, as we've talked about, so I think they could still sneak in a low playoff spot, maybe play in. Does this help them do that? Not really, but
No.
we'll see what happens next year.
JQ, anything to add on the trade?
Not too much. I think it's a rare trade where both sides really get what they're looking for out of it, and can't. There isn't really a winner in this, in as much as both sides kind of facilitated the goals that they have in front of them with better tools to do it than they had to start with. Uh, the defense is going to be absolutely terrible in Washington. McCollum is definitely a floor raiser and doesn't really do much in the way of complicating anything for them. So I think that at minimum, he is not going to hurt what they're doing and can probably help what they're doing. Not too much else to add other than I'm actually pretty impressed with how Washington has managed to cap space and used it to kind of generate assets out of nothing. They've had taken on some pretty bad players and have been a pretty bad team, but they were doing that without collecting any assets beforehand. So good for them.
Yeah, I won't add too much here other than that it's kind of crazy that the Trae Young era ends with a salary dump, all things being equal. For what it's worth, Trae Young, I grant you, Daniel, that Trae Young has been a very good player at times and has been Boston thorn for a few years. He's also shooting 30% from deep this year, has to be said. For a guy who makes his living as an elite three-point shooter, if you're not an elite three-point shooter and you're also a bad defender, that's going to crush your trade value, especially considering that there is a long-term extension that he's going to sign somewhere. We still don't know if it's going to be in Washington. I don't know that he's formally committed to it being in Washington. We will see. I think things are going to be interesting for Trae Young in free agency, to say the least. But in theory, if he does stay in Washington, there could be some fun stuff there. We'll just have to see, though. And for the Hawks, the last thing I'll say on that is I don't think the Hawks are done making moves. Everyone who has reported on this has suggested that a huge part of why Trae Young is moved now was so that they could clear the books to make other moves. They have been linked to Anthony Davis. I think it's pretty clear that the Hawks are going to try to get a player that can help them win now in the immediate future, whether that's Anthony Davis or somebody else. This team is not done. And I think Trae being moved out is kind of just the cost of doing business in the new CBA for them. TBH. Anyway, we are going to keep it moving. We're going to take a closer look at the contenders, the pretenders, and the not so much of anythings. We'll jump into that right after our standard segment. It's the steal. It's time. Clemente, you get to take the pod in any direction you would like. Do you want to talk about basketball-related things, Thunder-related things, Celtics-related things, what you had for breakfast-related things? You get to take this thing. Where do you want to go with it?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, we're kind of at the halfway point of the season, and it's just kind of crazy, just kind of the media circus that surrounds a reigning NBA champion, and
Oh yeah.
it's just weird. Like I'm like you guys obviously went through the same thing last year, so it's just kind of
Yep.
surreal, just kind of also.
They've lost multiple games. Is the dynasty ending? What dynasty hasn't started yet?
But yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, they've been OKC's been kind of going through a funk recently. They're 7-6 in their last 13 games, and just seeing the whiplash in terms of reaction. Where 3 weeks ago everybody was saying, "Oh yeah, they're gonna walk their way to 74 wins," to now saying like, "I don't know, the Spurs got their number. Like, are we sure they're the favorite?" and all this other stuff. It's been a little surreal for sure. And I mean, I guess the saying goes that heavy's the head that wears the crown, and I mean, that's definitely been true for OKC.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Thunder later on in this pod, but it is interesting seeing the parallels of what they're going through now versus what Boston went through last year. There definitely is some overlap, but we're going to start first off at a different place. So before we get into things, we should define like the Oklahoma City Thunder, for whatever warts they might be experiencing right now, are still 100% locked in, bona fide, absolute contenders. They have to be, right? They're coming off of finals where they just won in convincing fashion. By all accounts, they're going to win 60-something games at a minimum this year. That's a 1A rock solid contender. What do we define as far as contenders are concerned? Obviously, the Celtics won a title 2 years ago. The Thunder won it last year. I think we have some expertise amongst the four of us of what actually is a contender. So let's go around the horn first to you, Clemente. What do you view as being essential characteristics of an actual contender for the NBA title?
Well, I think a couple of good rule of thumbs that most NBA fans probably know are like the Phil Jackson rule, where you get 40 wins before 20 losses. That's like a good like barometer test as to whether or not you're a series contender. And the net rating stuff as well. Like a good barometer that I've heard over the years is that if you got a net rating of like 6+, 6 or above, which means you're you know up there in terms of like the best teams in the league, then that's also a good like statistical barometer as well. And I think another thing for me personally is just who's your best player, because a lot of the times these close playoff games comes down to shot making, and do you have the best guy on the floor? Um, and if you do, that kind of helps you win on the margins, and that's really what uh, kind of wins you a playoff series, playoff game, or go deeper in the playoffs as well. So, I mean, those are kind of things I kind of look for a team. I think OKC obviously fits that criteria. Boston, I mean, Jaylen Brown's been playing like an All NBA guy. The Spurs, I mean, Wembanyama's been playing like a top 5 guy. The Nuggets, obviously, with Jokic. So, I mean, those are kind of the things I look for.
Yeah. JQ, Daniel, any other traits of contenders that we should mention off the bat?
I think that pretty much covered it. I mean, I don't know about you, Justin, but I think that sounds like a good collection of things.
I have a much narrower definition, which is simply you have to be in the NBA Finals to be a contender. We
That's
can
pretty
guess
narrow.
beforehand. No, but like really, the Houston Rockets played the Celtics for an NBA title with a losing record.
That's
You don't
true.
have to have any of the things that Clemente named to technically be a contender. Now, a contender with any shot at winning, that's a huge, all those things matter that Clemente said. But it is possible, based on luck and chance, to get that far, even now.
That's true. And I mean, in 2023, the Miami Heat were an 8 seed and they went to the NBA Finals despite not having the kind of standard prerequisites of like a locked in, clear top 15 player or, like an elite, advanced metrics profile or whatever. They just they got a number of breaks and they also got really hot at the right time and played really well. So it's murky, it's fluid. What is a contender seems to kind of change up in the air, but you know it when you see it. I think that's fair to say. I think we're all in agreement there. So we're going to start off with the not contenders. First off, with the teams that are looking for lottery odds, we don't have to spend too much time on them. The Indiana Pacers, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Sacramento Kings, these teams are headed for the basement. The Indiana Pacers in particular have the worst record in basketball. They are on a 12-game losing streak. It's looking real bad in Indianapolis. They are very far removed from Game 7 in the NBA Finals. Tyrese Halliburton will not be playing this year, and boy, are they feeling it. The New Orleans Pelicans, while having some plucky moments lately, being a little bit friskier than I think people expected them to be, are still quite bad. They're struggling. Let's see, what is their record as of now? Pulling it up.
8 and something, 9
yeah,
and something.
Not good. Not good. So here I have it. The New Orleans Pelicans, currently 8-31. They are at the absolute bottom of the Western Conference. There's lots of trade rumors swirling around, virtually every player on their roster. And so we'll just have to see. Although Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears are both having pretty nice seasons. Good. So there's that. The Sacramento Kings also only have 8 wins, 29 losses. It is looking abysmal once again in Sacktown. We got Dennis Schroeder, we got Russell Westbrook, we got DeMar DeRozan, we got an increasingly despondent Domantas Sabonis. These teams are not looking particularly great right now, and they are headed only one way. Anything to say about the non-contenders here?
I'll say the Pacers can gut out this one season, maybe get the number 1 pick, and I think they'll be okay as long as Halliburton is feeling better. Like they still have talent. Like I think they'll be okay next year. The Kings though, they just make me sad, honestly. Like
Kings.
It's been like this for a while. Besides that one year where they're like the 3rd seed, 4th seed, whatever it was, but this is just a sad franchise, and they have all these stars who were once stars but are now kind of over the hill, and they got some youth coming up, but I don't know. This is just like a sad team. I was watching the Celtics game against them. Like, the Celtics are just going to win, and nobody's going to care about this after. Like, this team is not good.
Free Keon Ellis, please. Clemente, anything to add here?
Yeah, I just think if the Pelicans were smart, I think they should sell high on Trey Murphy. I mean, he just dropped 40 against the Lakers in the loss. Yeah, he's really good. Kind of a 3-and-D wing. It's kind of an oversimplification of his game, but he's kind of fits the 3-and-D wing mold. Really good player. And, I mean, I don't know. The Pelicans should just – I mean, they got like a good starting point with Fears and Queen, and I think they should just build off of those 2 guys and try to sell everybody else off. Like, the Zion stuff just didn't work out. I know he's having a good season, but I think both sides will probably welcome a fresh start. But in terms of, like, potential trade assets, I think Trey Murphy would probably fetch them the most.
It's not like they have another lottery pick coming their way in the immediate future. So for better or worse, Derek Queen and Jeremiah Fears are the core heading into New Orleans. The Pacers will be fine. This is a painful year, but ultimately, if they have Tyrese, Pascal Siakam, Andrew Nembhard, Rick Carlisle, and a lottery pick, and then they do anything at all to acquire an even decent starting center, I think that team will ultimately be okay. There's some teams that are floating just above these teams that things are not great, but they're still scrapping. They're still fighting for something. They haven't completely thrown in the towel. The aforementioned Washington Wizards just traded for Trae Young. They've been scrappy lately. They've been winning a couple of surprising games. Seems like they're kind of slowly putting some momentum together. They've got a couple of guys that can play. Alex Sarr having a nice season after many kind of threw in the towel on him last year. The Brooklyn Nets had a very good game against the Orlando Magic last night in which they lost, but they fought to the very bitter end. They had an outstanding defense in December that has since tailed off a little bit, but they've got some talent. Igor Damian, Michael Porter Jr. is potentially the hottest trade asset heading into the deadline. They're going to get a haul for him if they play their cards right. So Brooklyn, there's some optimism here in Brooklyn amongst the very few Nets fans that I encounter on a day-to-day basis. The Utah Jazz the Utah Jazz just continue to be a very well coached team with some players that are intriguing, but not enough talent to win in the Western Conference. It's just like I feel bad for the Jazz, who are the ultimate West victims. It's truly brutal out there because Larry Markkinen is good, Keontae George is good. They have a good coach in Will Hardy. Like they have players on this roster, and they just play in the Western Conference and they get smacked around by the best West teams every single time, which is really tough. And the Dallas Mavericks, with Cooper Flagg firmly in the Rookie of the Year race, with the other Nembhard, Ryan Nembhard, playing pretty well, and with Daniel Gafford and a couple of other guys, doing things. They haven't thrown in the towel. They're in the play-in mix right now. They're 14-23. So they're hanging around there. And maybe they're getting something back for Anthony Davis at the deadline. Things are not great, but they could get better for all of these teams. Any thoughts on really any one of these teams? Go to you first, Justin.
Well, I do think that all of these teams do have something to build off of, but I'm really curious to see what Utah does. I get the feeling that Danny wants to get better sooner than later, and that the talk about keeping, oh my God, you just said his name and I blinked on him.
Will Hardy?
No,
no.
player.
Marketing?
Lowry, Markkinen. Good Lord. I think they actually do want to keep him, brain farts aside. And I think they're a team to watch during this trade deadline for something to that too.
Yeah, I think any one of these teams could be in there. Anything else to add, folks, on these guys?
I actually wanted the opposite because it's kind of flown under the radar, but OKC does own Utah's top 8 pick. So,
That is true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they said Markkinen out a couple times with some like minor injuries, illnesses, stuff like that. So I'm sure they don't want to give up a lottery pick to OKC, especially considering just how bad their lottery luck has been since they rebuilt it. Um, I think they're willing to stomach one more losing year, just to keep that lottery pick.
Although it's tough because they got into trouble with the league for blatantly tanking down the
Yeah.
stretch of last year. So they got to kind of play
Mhm.
their cards a little carefully, but we'll see when push comes to shove. You can't really lose out on a lottery pick if you're the Utah Jazz. There's some teams as well that are slightly above or around those teams. Some of them are headed in the wrong direction. I would argue that some of them are actually headed in the right direction, at least to some degree. We're talking about the Charlotte Hornets. We're talking about the Los Angeles Clippers. We're talking about the Memphis Grizzlies, the Golden State Warriors, and the Milwaukee Bucks. So I'm intrigued for all of these teams. And I'll start with my pick for a team that I think is actually sneakily headed in the right direction, although it might take a little bit to get there. The Charlotte Hornets are playing pretty tough right now. They notably blew out the Oklahoma City Thunder the other day, among other things. They have some players who are actually stepping up for them. Con Knipple firmly in Rookie of the Year race. Brandon Miller playing very well for them. Seems like they're starting to kind of slowly piece together an identity. Now, will that identity involve LaMelo Ball? I'm not
That's
sure.
the key question. Yes.
But they are building something in Charlotte. Anything to add there, folks?
I think you nailed it.
No, I mean,
But the Hornets are in general.
The Hornets, I think, but we'll keep it moving. The Los Angeles Clippers, they sure are a basketball team. It's crazy because Kawhi Leonard is so good. I mean, he's just incredible at basketball when he's on. Like, truly a top 10 lock if he's playing at the best of his powers. But he doesn't stay healthy. He misses a lot of games. And this whole team is built around guys who are old. Like James Harden is playing very well, but he can't give you maximum effort on a game-to-game basis. Brook Lopez is also playing reasonably well. I mean, it's weird because a lot of players on this team are playing well, and yet they keep losing. And I'm not really sure kind of what's happening there. Any thoughts on the Clippers at all? They're confusing to me.
yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like they figured some stuff out recently. I don't know what the record is, but I think they're like 1, 2, 3. like eight and
They
two.
won like 6 games in a row until Boston beat them, and I think they won the game after that too. Yeah, so
Yeah.
They're like 8 and 2 the last 10. I think they're pretty close to the play-in actually.
They
But
are.
yeah,
Yes, they're 13 and 23. Like this team is 13 and 23, and yet Kawhi Leonard can drop 55 points. It makes no sense. They're so confusing. I don't understand. Anyway, moving on from the Clippers. In the play-in tournament are the Memphis Grizzlies, who had a nice win over the San Antonio Spurs the other night. 16-21. They've got Pat Spencer doing things, former lacrosse guy, now turned NBA basketball player. Jaren Jackson is still there. They've got some depth. They've got a big John Morant problem hanging over their heads, though, which is that guy's not playing very much this year. When he is playing, he's not playing very well, and he makes a whole lot of money. So we'll see what's happening with them. And then two teams that have had some very disappointing seasons relative to their expectations. The Golden State Warriors, despite having a 20-18 record, positive, are not meeting the moment, at least as far as true contender status. They're nowhere close. Jonathan Kuminga will be getting dealt in a matter of weeks, it would appear. Draymond Green is not the guy he used to be. Steph Curry is still pretty close to the guy he used to be, but it's awfully hard to be a one-man offensive engine. Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler, you know? He'll get his points, he'll get his rebounds, he'll hustle. There's only so much that he can do. And our dear departed Al Horford just can't really seem to catch a rhythm with this team, which is a shame. But we'll see what happens with the Warriors. And then the Milwaukee Bucks, it's been tumult and chaos. The Bucks are still not in the play-in. Giannis is back and he's playing well. But man, this roster has a lot of holes outside of Giannis. Are there any thoughts that we have to add about any of these teams, whether they're headed in the right or wrong directions?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the Warriors and Bucks embody this category of they just don't really know that or they don't want to admit they're going in the wrong direction. Like the Warriors are just clinging to these last years of Curry, and I think Steve Kerr is gonna hang it all up when Curry hangs it all up. But that doesn't seem to be happening yet, so they're just kind of treading water. And I think they know, like, there's a crazy quote from Steve Kerr where he's like, we know we're not going to like contend with the Thunder and the Spurs like for titles over these next few years. And I'm like, well, why are you still here? Like, what you're holding this franchise hostage? Like, well, what's the point here? I mean, they could maybe sneak into the playoffs and like upset a team based on the fact that they have Curry. But besides that, I just don't really see this old team that's one injury away from disaster from really making any noise in the playoffs. And I feel like they just need to admit that it's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
not much to add. Just these teams are all in this category because they have at least one major issue that they need to take care of that they are not taking care of. And I think some of them actually do have a bright future, but with regard to the Warriors in particular, like I understand why you don't want to necessarily blow something up that is so dear to so many people in that area. But as someone who lived through the so-called wilderness years of the Celtics when they did not do that with the original Big Three's title core, and then having seen what they did do the last time they had a Big Three, it's a very, very clear, just rip the damn Band-Aid off and you'll be happier in the long run.
I think that's probably reasonable. Speaking of teams that rip the Band-Aid off, the Atlanta Hawks did rip the Band-Aid off. Trae Young is now on the Washington Wizards, as we mentioned before. Then the Chicago Bulls are once again bound for the Eastern Conference play-in. There is no mistaking it. These two teams will be in the Eastern Conference play-in tournament until the league folds. I am convinced. Tell me otherwise. Why should I feel any differently about either of these teams heading into the kind of next chunk of the season?
About the Bulls, you shouldn't. I mean, they really bother me. Like, this is a team that is also just treading water so hard. Billy Donovan, I do think he's a good coach overall, but he's been there forever, and they haven't done anything lately. And I mean, they're still hanging on to Vucevic somehow. I don't know what they're exactly waiting for. The right price, it's like 3 years too late. Josh Giddey's hurt right now, which is tough for them, but I just don't really see anything positive for this team outside of Buzelis looks promising. But this is another team that also needs to just call it quits and give up on whatever they're currently trying to do. But I don't think that's going to happen because they're selling out seats still in their giant arena. And I know Jerry Reinsdorf has a pretty bad reputation in Chicago right now. I don't think he's going to fix that. Yeah.
Nikola Vucevic might be calling it quits on this Bulls team. He seems like he's ready to get out of there.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on either of these teams, Clemente?
No, I mean it just seems like with the Bulls more so now after what the Hawks did, but they just seem content with being like a decent team, getting the play in. That's really it. That's been their MO since forever.
If they do end up trading for Anthony Davis, there is a very good chance that it will play out in the same kind of way it has in Dallas, which is just going to be the most painful thing to watch. I mean, like, it's that meme of the Grim Reaper going door to door to door. Just it's not him particularly; it's the contract size, to be very, very clear, versus availability. But it just blows my mind that they would actually even consider getting rid of Trae Young and Kristaps Porzingis in the same season to replace them with a guy who has basically the same issues, if not defensively in terms of availability.
Ultimately, this team is Jalen Johnson's team going forward. And whatever moves they make need to be thought about in the context of how can we make the best roster possible around Jalen Johnson. I don't hate the idea of Anthony Davis being part of that in theory, but we'll see. Some teams that are, I think, surprising in how much better they've been relative to expectations. The Portland Trailblazers have been playing quite well. Denny Avdia having a career season. Justin's guy, Donovan Clingan, looked like an absolute monster against the Boston Celtics. Continues to improve.
Wearing the goatee just to give him some respect for the new facial hair.
Right, exactly. Shaedon Sharpe continues to play quality basketball. The Portland Trailblazers seem like they have something going. And the Phoenix Suns also feel like they have something going. Dylan Brooks has really instilled an identity in this team. Currently, the Suns are the 7 seed. They are 22-15, which I don't think anybody saw coming heading into this year. They're looking pretty spicy. They've had some very competitive games lately. Jalen Green has not played a whole lot for the Suns this year, but should be coming back soon, I believe. Devin Booker having a good season, but really the thing for me that jumps out with the Suns is that Jordan Ott seems like he's a pretty legit head coach here. This guy seems like he's getting the absolute most out of this roster. So it's a little bit island of misfit toys for both of these teams, but at least they're doing something with those toys. Any thoughts to add about either Portland or Phoenix?
Yeah, I'll say about the Suns. Well, Justin's got his guy Donovan Clingan. I got my guy Colin Gillespie. He's been having a great year for the Suns, so shout out to him. But Dylan Brooks has been great too, and I feel like they kind of suffer from being in the West. If they were in the East, they could like legit be like a top 6 seed, which is kind of crazy. And I feel like of any team in the NBA right now, they mirror the Celtics overachieving the most. Because I remember preseason we were trashing on them, which seemed right in the moment. But now I feel like we've ate our words a bit. And will they do anything really this season? I don't know. Just the West is too good. But still, props to them, and they got a brighter future than we thought.
Any thoughts to add on the Suns or Blazers, fellas?
I think it's just kind of funny that Portland kind of stumbled on Avdia and like how he's probably going to be an all-star. It just goes to show that how a player kind of develops is pretty random and hard to guess because, I mean, if I would have told you whenever he was on the Wizards that he turned into this 25-point-per-game scorer, playmaking wing, free throw generator, all this stuff, you wouldn't have believed me. So it's just kind of crazy just how much like player development just comes down to luck.
The free throws with Denny are pretty staggering. It's kind of wild to watch him develop that part of his game. Shout out to Tiago Splitter. Seems like he might be a good NBA head coach. Who knows? As far as moves that these teams can make, if I'm the Phoenix Suns, I'm not making any moves because I made a lot of moves recently and they didn't go super well. I think you're just trying to ride this thing and see where you land at the end of the season. And for Portland, I think you could talk me into if there's a deal out there where you can upgrade that Jeremy Grant spot, like you got to take that. I think it might be a little tricky to do that without giving up some draft equity, which we'll see. But there's definitely a world in which they could get better and become buyers at the deadline. Um, I'm going to combine these next two categories into the morass of Eastern Conference question marks, because the Miami Heat, the Orlando Magic, the Toronto Raptors, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Philadelphia 76ers are all teams that have shown flashes of being pretty good in a very strange Eastern Conference, but all seem to have critical flaws that undo them at the worst possible time. So I'll go around the horn to any one of you, any one of those teams that you want to jump on as far as the morass of Eastern Conference something. Justin, go for it.
Yeah, the intern, not me or anything, was putting the Cavs above those other teams only because they had the pedigree and the assumption of being a legitimate contender coming into the season, and justifiably so. But a lot of the things you've alluded to in terms of the vibes of the team, the structure of the team, the toe of their point guard, like things, weird things are going on to combine for what seems like a season from hell for them. And I can't quite put my finger on exactly what the root cause of it is, but there's just not something right with that franchise.
Yeah, it feels very strange in Cleveland right now. Any other teams that we want to cover in this blob of something?
Yeah, I'll say you can go, Clemente.
I was just gonna say, if this Orlando's kind of a weird team, they kind of had that little bit of a slow start, and I mean, the question that's been hanging over them for the last 2 years is, can Franz and Banchero coexist and all that? But I mean, there's been kind of a curveball here recently with like what Anthony Black's been doing as a scorer, and really, really like it looks like he's taking like a legit year-free leap in Orlando, and I'm just interested to see like if this keeps up, like how does that kind of change that question and just kind of the dynamics of their roster.
In a way, let me just jump in real quick. That dynamic, everyone compares them to the Jays, but like, is Jalen Suggs their Marcus Smart? Is he ultimately going to be the player that they end up moving on from to actually get the roster where it needs to be? Because with the emergence of Anthony Black, I think that is actually a viable path, if not a popular one.
Yeah, no, they're going to have some interesting decisions to make heading into these next couple off seasons. The math is going to get a little tight with them. I want to briefly touch on the Philadelphia 76ers. Tyrese Maxey, outstanding season. Should be an all-NBA guy, all-star lock, one of the 3 or 4 best players in the Eastern Conference. VJ Edgechrome, probably not quite as much in Rookie of the Year race anymore, but had a really good start to the season. Seems like he's clearly a piece for the future. They've got a number of guys who are playing quite well in Nick Nurse's system. Joel Embiid is playing better, but he's still the Paul George and Joel Embiid of it all, just hanging over what is such a good vibe season for the Sixers is so strange to me. And it's going to be hard to take them seriously as legit contenders, but it does feel like this is a team that can beat anybody on the right night if they play their cards right. Like Maxey is that good. I'm curious if there's any additional thoughts on the Sixers that y'all have.
I was just gonna say, well, first, I think the Magic and Raptors should kind of hold fast. I think with how open the East is, they could do something still. But as far as the Sixers, I was just gonna say it's another year where they're so weird. Like this team is always so hard to predict what's gonna happen. And like you said, Alex, I think a lot of that is because Embiid, like, who knows? Will he continue this like recent pretty good stretch? Will he get another random knee issue and then miss like the next 20 games? Who knows? They're just really tough to rate. But like I said with the other two teams, the East is open, but I still think they're going to have some trouble with relying on 2 dudes who likely will miss a playoff game if they make it that far.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting watching this blob try and sort itself out. Let's move to our next category, the fringe contenders. So the New York Knicks and the Los Angeles Lakers are who the intern put in our fringe contenders category. I'm going to posit something here, which is that I think the definition we have is need a twisted ankle or some to win it all. I think one of these teams has a much better path to winning it all than the others. To me, it's pretty clearly the New York Knicks, who are a much better team when Mitchell Robinson is healthy and playing for them. The advanced metrics for Mitchell Robinson are pretty wild in terms of what he's able to contribute as a rim protector and rebounder for this team. He fundamentally changes the way that their defense works and makes them significantly better on both ends. I would posit that they have a much better shot at being an actual bona fide contender than the Los Angeles Lakers. Any thoughts disagreeing with me, agreeing with me? Let's flesh that one out for a little bit.
One's in the Western Conference. I don't think it's too complicated.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there. I mean, the Lakers' defense is just still not that great, and they've had some issues. It's crazy that they have the same record as the Celtics so far, just given the different expectations for those teams. But yeah, it's a little telling that all of their losses have been blowouts still. Like, they haven't had a close loss. That's a bit of a problem. And like you said, Justin, the Knicks are in the East. I still think they have a chance at ending the season with a first seed. Or the 2 seed at least, but I still think they got a path.
No, I mean, like you guys said, like the Lakers. I mean, if you just look, I mean, the record's kind of fake a little bit. I mean, they're the only team among the top 8 in the West that have like a minus point differential. And if that's the case this deep in the season, then I mean, it just doesn't pass the smell test for sure.
JJ Redick certainly doesn't think that it's passing the smell test because he is viscerally upset about the state of their defense. With good reason, I might add. Their defense is quite bad. But, Luka Doncic is covering up a lot for this team. He continues to play quite well on the offensive end. They just kind of find ways to stay in these games and hash this thing out. I don't think we can write them off yet, but they don't have the profile of a true contender. That is for damn sure. Teams that feel like they're pretty close to the contender zone that we have written down. The Boston Celtics, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Houston Rockets, and the Detroit Pistons. Clemente, I'm going to go to you first. Rank these teams 1 through 4, 1 being most contenderish and 4 being least contenderish.
Oh, man. So would this be like which teams I think are better or which teams has the best odds to win the title? The first one?
Yeah.
I like Houston. I like what they've done this year. I know they've kind of been losing some close games recently against some bad teams, but they got Kevin Durant. He's been averaging 25 for them. Şengün's been playing like an All-NBA guy as well. They just got a good collection of role players as well. And I know their defense has been started a little slow this year, but we saw last year that they were a top 2 defense last year with mostly the same personnel. So I think they'll figure it out there. I think I'll put Houston 1. And then I think I'll pick Detroit 2, Boston 3. But those two can really flip-flop for me. Detroit's been probably one of the bigger stories of the league this year. Like they've really taken off. They kind of remind me of OKC a couple years ago where they just came out of nowhere and got the first seed. Cunningham's been playing really well. Jalen Duren's been playing really well. They got a really good defense in Detroit as well. And then Boston, I mean, like I said earlier, Jaylen Brown's been playing the best ball of his career. They're really, getting every drop of juice they can out of their roster. And you also got
no pun intended. Hold on.
And then I guess you also got to consider like the Tatum thing as well. Like, I mean, will he come back? If he comes back, like what kind of boost does that provide, and how does he look like? And then Minnesota, I like Minnesota. Obviously, they made the West Finals the last 2 years, but I don't know, they're just a little too inconsistent for my liking. Edwards is awesome. But the rest of the roster, it kind of feels like the rest of the roster is kind of like taking a step back a little bit. So I don't know. Like I like Minnesota. Like they've had a really good 2-year run. But like I don't know, when you stack them up against the rest of the West as well, they're just a little bit too inconsistent for my liking. Like I said,
we should also add. Sorry, just really quickly, we should also add that there is a contender in waiting that we have not addressed on the rundown, which is that the Denver Nuggets are very obviously a contender. They just need to be healthy when the playoffs start. They have Nikola Jokic. He is I think the best player in the world. Clemente, you can feel free to disagree. And their roster is very, very strong. It seems like it's getting better. David Adelman, clearly a good coach. I would put the Nuggets over all of these teams if they are healthy, but we need to see them healthy. As far as these four are concerned, I agree with you. I think the Houston Rockets in their current form when healthy would be the best one of these teams, right? Alperen Şengün has been out, but when that guy is playing, they are just an excellent basketball team. All the advanced metrics suggest that. They brutalized the Celtics earlier this year. Their front court depth is very, very serious. And that's an extremely good basketball team that just needs to get healthy. I would argue that this version of the Boston Celtics is probably the third best amongst these teams. But here's the thing. This version of the Boston Celtics, I'm not sure is going to be the one that they have in the playoffs, because they are bringing an all-NBA scorer back sometime around the deadline, by all accounts. That version of the Boston Celtics remains to be seen, but you got to think that if Jason Tatum is, say, even 80% of what he could be, that team should be firmly in the mix as well. The Pistons and Minnesota Timberwolves are both very interesting to me because it feels like a lot will depend on their trade deadlines and a lot will depend on how the bracket breaks for them. If Minnesota has to face like a Houston, Denver, OKC path to the finals, that's going to be really freaking hard for them. But if they get a better bracket, say they, match up with the Lakers in round one, a team that they spanked in the playoffs last year, let's be real. There's a world in which if the bracket breaks for that team, they could be right back in this thing. They also have some flexibility around the deadline, not a ton, but some. That could be used to, address their guard depth. Maybe with, a talented...
Stole my idea!
Who could shoot threes and provide a spark off the bench. And, someone like an Anthony Simons. Who's to say? But...
Or CJ McCollum.
Yeah.
While we're talking about it.
It's quite possible. Any one of those guys could be available. And until then, I think your instinct, Clemente, is right that they're probably just a slight tier below. But with the right deadline moves, they could be right in this thing. I think I feel the same way about the 1 seed Detroit Pistons, even though they are the 1 seed. It just feels a little too Cade dependent for me. He's having a great season, but I'm worried about
it's not so great recently, too.
I'm worried about what this team looks like in the postseason when defenses decide we are shutting off your water, Cade Cunningham. Do something about it.
Yeah, when they came to Boston, I haven't been too impressed, I will say. I like the 3-point shooting. I think it's just a pretty big issue, but credit to them, they hammered the Knicks. So
yeah,
if that's going to be their top competition, which it very well could be, they did do that, so you have to give them that credit, but I'm still not completely sold on the Pistons.
On the right night, they look very, very strong, and their record speaks for itself. I just have to see it in the playoffs before I believe. What I don't have to see in the playoffs before I believe is for our final category. The Oklahoma City Thunder, I think we can all agree, despite their recent slump and dumb losses to the Charlotte Hornets and things like that, this team is pretty obviously a contender. They are pretty obviously going to be heavily favored to win the Western Conference outright. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander heading to what is presumably going to be his second straight MVP award, unless he misses some games and Jaylen Brown maybe sneaks in there, which would be fun. And, they've got a loaded roster. Chet Holmgren on his way to DPOI, assuming he stays healthy. Despite recent shooting slumps from Lou Dort and inconsistent play from J-Dub Jalen Williams, this team is pretty firmly a contender. I don't think any of us disagree. Is that right?
Yeah.
No, yeah, for sure. I think this recent stretch might show that the gap between them and the rest of the league might not be as large as once was, but I still think they're the favorite.
But how worried should they be about that one team in the thorn on their side, which has been pretty tough all year, and I think probably has to be, at this point, considered a bona fide contender as well? The San Antonio Spurs have been playing the Oklahoma City pretty darn tough this year, Clemente. They've beaten them 3 times. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was able to be at like the floor level with media seating during the Christmas game, and the one thing that stood out for me was that I don't know if it translated on the broadcast is, I mean, the Spurs just make the Thunder look slow on defense, which is an absurd thing to say. I mean, you have
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox, who's one of the fastest guy in the league, Stephon Castle, who's kind of breaking out this year. They just got like a lot of speed. Dylan Harper as well, like off the bench as well. They just got like a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism, and for the first time in ever, they made guys like Casey Wallace, Alex Caruso, Lou Dort look a step slow, and that's really how they've been able to kind of beat them in these 3 games. And obviously, the Wemby stuff like that's kind of self-explanatory, but it's really just kind of their guard play and just the speed and athleticism that they play with that have kind of like beaten OKC to the punch in these 3 games.
Dr. Quinn is experiencing some technical issues for those of us who are watching on YouTube. You may have seen a really interesting face just now, but nonetheless, I digress. The San Antonio Spurs, I think they have to be a contender, right? As long as Victor Wembanyama is healthy, as long as these guards are playing at the level they're at, this feels like a team that is right in the mix. I would also posit that much like the Detroit Pistons and the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Spurs could absolutely make a move at this deadline. They are very much in the running for that. And I think there's a world in which they do make a move, one that could make them just a little bit stronger in terms of going up against this Thunder team. Has to be said, Keldon Johnson is playing really well off the bench. I think there's Harrison Barnes, I get it. He's been a great culture guy. There's a world in which Keldon Johnson could be the starting small forward for this team. And I don't think the Spurs would lose too much sleep over that. Also, Jeremy Sohan looking eminently movable these days. I think they're firmly in the mix. Is there anybody else that would disagree with the assessment that Spurs are rock solid, bona fide contenders?
I don't think so. I think the Thunder, Spurs, Nuggets is like a pretty fair top 3 for contenders, which is something to be said since they're all in the West. But Wemby's health does scare me a little as far as the Spurs. And then, I mean, Jokic is going to be out for like at least 3 more weeks because of his knee stuff, so that's a little spooky too, but we'll see how the health stuff shakes out. I'm just going to say I'm really excited, though, for Saturday. Celtics Spurs in TD Garden. That should be a great game. I feel like the Celtics haven't had like a really big Western Conference test yet, besides the Rockets game, but that was a while ago. Like while they've been on this recent like positive stretch, so I'm looking forward to that game. That should be good stuff.
A real test for the would-be contenders to be sure. Clemente, we're going to wrap things up. Where can we find your work here, boss?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitter /X, Almanza1007. And you can find my work at OKCThunderWire.com, daily content there. Like I said, we're right in the middle of the season, right in the thick of it. So it's super exciting times, getting to cover the reigning NBA champion and the same team that everybody kind of expects to kind of go back to back.
JQ, where can we find your work? Can you even tell us?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Woo! Yeah, Celtics Wire. You found it. My power went out, but I have some battery power, as you can see. So
good stuff.
Woo.
Daniel, where can we find your work?
Yeah, same thing. That Celtics Wire place. Also, Clutch Points, or just Google my name. But if you want like the real live time coverage, check me out on Twitter at DanielD1214. I'll be at the game tomorrow for the Raptors and Spurs one, like I was just talking about.
Nice. You can find my work by listening to my band Divine Sweater on various streaming platforms, or you can follow me on Instagram or Blue Sky if you want. It's fine. Yeah. Anyway, we'll close as always quickly with something to remember or something to forget. I'm going to go first and model for y'all. I need to remember that trains in New York do not always run on time, and sometimes they make you late to things. Daniel, do you have something to remember or something to forget?
I'm going to remember that the New England Patriots are back in the playoffs after believe, 4 years, and they got big game Sunday night against LA. So I'll be watching that for sure. Glad it wasn't conflicted with the Celtics because that'd be bad for viewers and that would just be really annoying.
That's true. Dr. Quinn, something to remember and or forget.
I'll keep it real brief considering the circumstances. Look out for each other, take care of each other, and take care of yourself. We need that right now.
Agreed. Clemente, something to remember or something to forget to close out the pod.
I need to remember to start, I guess, checking the weather app because it's like 60 degrees here and it's January in Oklahoma. So, I mean, just kind of crazy times for sure.
Sure are some crazy times. Well, I think Dr. Quinn's words are apt. Please take care of yourselves, folks. Please be kind to each other. And please do your best to not drive yourselves insane with all the various happenings in the world. And if you're looking for a nice distraction, just talking some hoops, you can always tune in to another episode of Havlicek Stole the Pod.